Welcome back, fellow adventurers, to a brand new video, and today we are back in class. We are continuing the Swords and Wizardry 101 courses, and now we are on section number 4. If you're unaware of what the series is, it is where I'm going through the Swords and Wizardry complete rulebook, and I'm teaching it to you guys so that way you can more easily play it at your game table. Swords and Wizardry is an old school game system that you can download absolutely for free on the Frog God Games website. The PDF is a free download, so if you want to follow along while I'm going through this guide, you're more than welcome to go ahead and download that. Link is the top of the description as always. And if you missed the other videos and want to go back and watch them, you can check out the playlist I'm going to link in the description, and that will take you from video 1 all the way up to where we are now. So far I've covered the basics of creating a character, races, and classes themselves. So basically we've built our characters. Now it's time to equip them with some armor and decide what alignment they're going to be, along with some miscellaneous other stuff here and there. Today's video will be a little bit shorter than the other ones because what comes after this little bit of, buying things that your character is going to use is where it starts teaching you actually how to physically play the game. So I want to reserve that for one video in and of itself instead of breaking it up into sections or cross-sectioning it with other things. And don't be discouraged if you haven't seen the other episodes yet. You can just sort of listen to them as a podcast. I do this more of like a broadcasting, just open, free, long form content style. So it's great for the drive to work, for school, or wherever you're going. Or if you're just doing some menial tasks around the house or something, just throw up the videos and listen to it in the background. I try to do my best to audibly explain everything instead of relying on the visual aspects of it. So that way people can do these menial tasks or whatever you're doing while listening. Enough blabbing from me, let's get into the video. All right, now that we have our PDF open, we are ready to start with class. All right, so now that we have our character made, we have our class, our race, and we are familiar with what is actually on our character sheet as far as statistics goes. We're going to choose an alignment. Now, alignment has been under fire recently. If you are, a current RPG gamer, you'll have seen some stuff on forums or social media that alignment should be done away with because people think it restricts the character too much. On the contrary, in my opinion, I think it's sort of just like a guide map of behavior, However, I do agree that there can be alignment shifts within your game. But I'll explain that more in a second when I explain what is what. So in Swords and Wizardry, there is only law and chaos. However, there is neutrality as well. There's just not a cool symbol for it. Basically, in the short rundown is law is good, and chaos is more on the evil side. You're more open and susceptible to evil stuff. However, there is neutrality as well. Neutrality is pretty much right down the middle there. Neutrality is for druids who are just basically focused on sanctifying the forces in nature and holy places, or its holy places rather. They're not as concerned with who or what is trying to infringe upon that. They're just more concerned about preserving the balance of the world. A lot of thieves are neutral as well because they more are on the self-interest side of life. And I would go argue to say that rangers as well can be neutral or are often in the neutral way. A lot of rangers sort of act like druids where they're just more concerned about the balance of life or their fiefdom. So they're not as loyal to a specific person. They're more loyal to the kingdom itself, and no matter who's in charge, they're looking out for the best of their fiefdom. You can see that as law, because they're acting in the goodness of everyone. However, like I said, can be neutral if you want to play it that way. Law is, your paladins, clerics, and then the majority of anyone, really. Good characters are much more common than chaotic characters or chaos characters. However, if you are going to run an adventuring party of a couple law characters, I would recommend just having everyone be under law. It's much easier to play the game when everyone is sort of on the same page. It's just really sort of annoying and a pain in the butt to have someone who's chaos that's always just kind of ruining it for the other players sometimes. And I think a lot of longtime veteran players would agree with me on that. However, in Swords and Wizardry, if you don't want to run a heroic game, you can easily just do a chaos game. That kind of goes into it here. You don't want to get tangled up in the law and chaos. But it says here you can just kind of do away with it if what you want. But there is chaotic campaigns where there's a party of chaos characters. We've done it before in my game and at my table. We don't love it. It's fun for like a session or two, and then everyone just kind of gets bored of like the pillage and destroy towns and loot the towns. So yeah, I mean, I do like the alignment system. I do agree that if a character starts out lawful, they can definitely fall into chaos, and I do agree that chaotic characters can end up going to the lawful side. I think character development is a really amazing thing that is extremely overlooked. So yeah, it just sort of like sets a parameter of the personality and moral traits of your character, which I think is important because in a lot of the times in Swords and Wizardry and other RPGs, you're faced with moral quandaries, and that will help you have a guide map to how your character is supposed to react to these. Okay, cool. So now we have all of the sort of like, I guess I know I just said that you can change your alignment as character goes along. Your race and your class are sort of unchangeables throughout the game. You're gonna be a dwarf the whole time, and you're gonna be a fighter the whole time unless you do multiclassing and stuff. You know what I mean. Now we are going to go into the specific changeables that are going to come and go throughout your game, and that's equipment that your character is going to have. Now, before I go into this, I want to explain armor class. For those who don't know or have never played an RPG before, armor class is basically how difficult it is to hit a character or creature in combat. Swords and Wizardry has two differing systems. We have descending, which is the regular armor class. Descending is what you use mainly in old school games. And then we have ascending, which has been lately used in new school games. So I'm going to explain both and then give my opinion, because I guess that's what you're here for. So if you're using the regular system of armor class, an unarmored character starts with an AC of 9, okay? And then every type of armor that has effect on AC reduces your armor class. So maybe you get a shield that gives you a -1, so your AC is going to go down to 8. And then say let's throw some plate armor. Let's say we have a ton of money and we just buy some plate armor. That's going to bring you down. Well, if you use the shield, that's going to bring you down to a armor class of 2, which is incredible. Basically, and this isn't in Swords and Wizardry or anything. This is just my knowledge, giving you some extra help there for people who are confused, maybe. The idea of armor class being a small number was generated because they thought, if you think small number, you think smaller to hit, like it's harder to hit if you have a small target, right? That makes sense. And I got that information from Frank Menser, who worked for TSR, the company who created Dungeons and Dragons. Gary Gygax was obviously the head honcho there for a while. Frank was basically Gary's right-hand man. He created the game system BECME, the notorious Red Box, the Temple of Elemental Evil adventure, and then a bunch of stuff for the RPGA, which was the organized play of D&D back in the day. And that's what he told me. He said, and I can't even remember how it came up. We were just chit-chatting. And he said that armor class was ascending originally because they thought, smaller area to hit, it makes sense with the smaller number. I digress. That's a way that you can use it. Or you can use the ascending armor class. So if you're using the ascending armor class system, an unarmored character has an armor class of 10. So you start at 10. Then anything that has an effect on your AC, your numbers are going to go up. So let's say we have that shield on again. We're going to have an 11 armor class. But then they'll say, let's buy that plate armor again. So that's going to be a 17 armor class. Now this is where, people can have the debate of whether you want to use descending or ascending. Obviously, just whatever is best for your table, use that. But I personally, and I know this is going to go against the regular system of Swords and Wizardry and the old school, but if you are a new player or, it's a new campaign, new referee, new players, I recommend using ascending. I think it's easier to roll your D20 when you're going to hit a character and adding your modifiers up to the goal. Basically, let's give a scenario here. So you use your D20 to roll to hit. Let's say you have a +2 to hit from whatever it may be, your strength, and maybe you got a +1 sword with you. If the creature you're trying to hit has an 11 armor class, you just roll your d20. Let's say you get a 10. You add those two, and then that's a 12. So you're going to hit. I think it's easier than doing the math for Thaco. Yeah, I just think it's easier to use AC as ascending because it's easier to add up, in my opinion, than it is like subtract and do the mental gymnastics. Now, I completely understand. I grew up on old school, so me using low AC is not hard. I talked to my dad about it, who grew up in the old school, obviously, and he said that's just the way they did it, and now it's just in his brain, and it's just the way he thinks right off the bat, which I completely understand as well. But, new school systems use ascending, so it's just kind of easier, in my opinion, for new players. And that's also been my personal experience as well, is getting people into the game. Okay, so now we're going to go buy our equipment. Now that we have our armor class idea in mind, because that's going to come into effect in one moment when I explain actually, what kind of armor you can buy. Sorry, I just had to take my mid-video sip of water. Okay, so everyone is, you're going to start with some gold at the beginning of your career, whether this was from your apprenticeship before you joined an adventuring party, or however you got this gold or silver or copper. This is what you get. Okay, so 1 gold piece is worth 10 silver pieces or 100 copper pieces. So that just gives you the math if you find some silver pieces or copper along your adventuring. When you start, you're going to roll 3d6 and multiply by 10. So if I roll my 3d6 and say I get, whatever, let's just say we get a 7. We rolled low, or, kind of average. That gives you 70 gold pieces to start, and buy equipment. This is where all of our equipment's going to come into the scenario. Okay, so buying equipment at a low level. First, what you're going to want to do is talk to your referee. Talk to your referee, find out what kind of adventure you guys are going to start in, and then buy gear based around that. Some referees will have you buy your... Sorry. Oh, I'm getting burpy for some reason. Some referees will have you buy your equipment before you come to the gaming table for the first time, and some referees will have you all do it in your first session. He or she will say, okay, we're starting in a city. You're in the market right now. What do you guys want to buy? And then you'll take 10 minutes or whatever to do it right there. Also, some referees will let you just inherently start with some stuff. For example, fighters, you might get to start with your weapon. Magic users might be able to get a start with a spell book. You just talk to your referee, get all that stuff sorted out before you start buying things, because nothing's worse than spending a ton of money on, whatever it may be, just like a musical instrument if you're never going to be bored. I don't know. Just an example. Bad one at that. Okay, so what do I recommend for you to buy? So let's kind of go down the list here. I would get a backpack. Backpack, you can just carry all your stuff in it. It has a 30-pound capacity, so that's awesome. I would definitely get a bedroll so your character is comfortable. If you want to, get a glass bottle of wine for sipping at the end of a long day, you can. You can get some candles if you want, but I would recommend torches because that will help light the way, and they're more often being usable. You can maybe buy a case if you want, just in case you find some scrolls, or if you have a map that's going to help you get to your destination of adventure. Chain, yeah, you can if you want. It's very expensive, so I always recommend rope. Just some classic hemp rope, 50 feet, maybe get 150 feet worth. That's like 3 gold, really not that bad. Chalk, I do like chalk because it does have a lot of uses. For example, if you're going through a dungeon, you can sort of like mark on the ground the places you've been before. So when you come back down to an area, you can look at the chalk and say, oh, hey, I remember that. It's sort of like the Hansel and Gretel bread trail that's not going to be eaten unless, you turn and you fight a chalk-eating monster, which is very unlikely. I love crowbars. The crowbars are amazing. Very helpful for like busting doors open, opening chests, that kind of stuff. Speaking of chest, I wouldn't recommend buying a chest. It's just going to be really hard to carry around at a low level because, you don't really have a wagon to carry your stuff in quite yet. Maybe you do. I'll get into that in a second. Flask, maybe if you want. Leather, throw some wine in there. Flint and steel, for sure. That'll help you make your fires a lot better. Garlic, you can if you want. Charmed garlic is a head of garlic with hexes and blessings on it. It's going to have effects on undead. So, if you're running without a cleric, maybe you can grab some. It's up to you. It's expensive as well, 10 gold. If you roll poorly, you're not going to be able to splurge on stuff like that. Grappling hook definitely will help. You can tie it to your hemp rope and, climb some places. Hammer, that can be helpful in certain situations. Holy symbol, like I said, maybe talk to your referee, see if the referee will just let you start with that instead of having to buy it. Holy flask, holy flask, the holiest of flasks. Anything put in turns holy. A holy water in a flask. This is really helpful. We'll actually just scroll down here and talk about it. It causes damage when thrown on most types of undead creatures and demons. Since a lot of undeads and demons can only be damaged with magical weapons, holy water is a really, really good way to be able to damage them from afar as well. You can just maybe throw some holy water in a vial on the ground and it'll splash up at them. I digress. It's really helpful against those kind of creatures. So, just something to think about, maybe for like wizards or people who don't want to get up close to them. Ink. If you have practical purposes of like, you have to, you're sending some messages or you're sending some letters to people, I guess you can use it. Ladder, I wouldn't really recommend a ladder. It's just hard to carry around. Lamps. Okay. So bullseye and hooded. A bullseye is going to shine a beam 60 feet long and only 10 feet wide through a little hole in the metal cylinder. You can hinge the cover shut so it shuts, so the light can't come out. A hooded lantern is going to shine in a 30-foot radius, so they're very different in use. So the hooded lantern is going to shine 30 feet of light around you. That's very, very helpful. And then the bullseye, was going to shoot down a corridor or something for you. So very different purposes. Again, talk to your referee and kind of just see what you would rather have. Locks, manacles, they have their uses. A mirror has its uses, seeing around corners and stuff. Musical instrument, for our musical friends. Lamp oil. If you get the lamps, you're definitely going to need the lamp oil as well with it. Talk to your referee on how much a pint will get you. It's kind of up to them, or you can just go down here. I'm dumb, I forgot. A pint of oil will keep a lantern burning for 4 hours. Okay, so that's easy. It can also be used as some damage as well. If it's you can throw it as a weapon and cause 1d4 damage on a successful hit, and 1 more for each round. Burning oil can be used to create hazards, which is awesome. Basically, the advantage of getting a lantern over a torch, because torches have the same effect as a hooded lantern, the 30-foot radius rather. But these can be blown out by gust of winds, or even possibly if you drop them. So, if you need to light something on fire quickly, it can be used in that way. It's really up to you and your party on what you want to do. 10-foot pole is always an amazing thing to have around to prod some area in front of you just in case it's going to give out or something like that. Rations are how you feed yourself. It's up to the referee on whether he or she wants to use rations, because not everyone uses them. So, yeah, I don't know why, but I don't use them sometimes. Sometimes they're just a hassle. Sacks will just help you carry stuff. Shovel to dig. Signal whistle can be helpful. Spellbook blank. Iron spikes can be helpful. A tent, I would recommend everyone pitching in for a tent or two. torch, like we said. Water skin obviously has its uses, in wolfsbane. Basically, wolfsbane is going to keep the wolves at bay, or werewolves at bay, temporarily, as eloquently stated by Matthew Finch. Okay, so now we have our item descriptions. Yeah, we just pick and choose what you think you want, what gold you want to expend towards it, and talk to your referee on what you can use. So here are all of our weapons, our melee weapon tables. So here's some things that you want to keep in mind. Anything with the number 1 on it, so battle axes, spears, and bastard swords can be used as 1 or 2-handed weapons. If it has a number 2 next to it, when wielded with 2 hands, it gains a +1 damage bonus. Bastard swords, spears, and battle axes again. And then number 3 can be used as a melee and a missile weapon, so our daggers, hand axes, and spears. So pick what you think your character would want to use the most, and go with it. Think of its weight as well, and then how much it costs. That's really important there. So you might not be able to buy certain weapons depending on how much gold you rolled. But again, talk to your referee. I'm gonna jump to missile weapons real quick. Rate of fire is kind of important. It's how many times it can be fired during a single round of combat. Sometimes it can be fired more than once, or not at all. Bows you can shoot off 2 shots, and darts you can do 3, which is really cool. 3 darts. That's mainly for casters in the back when you run out of spells or don't want to use spells. So like a heavy crossbow can be fired once in a round and then must be reloaded for a full round before it can be fired again. So some people just walk around with a loaded crossbow, and then shoot it and then just kind of like set it on the ground, for, the next use. Not a lot. I don't know. I've never like spent an entire turn reloading unless I'm really terrified to run into melee. But most of the time someone using a heavy crossbow is going to be your melee type characters anyway. So it might be more useful just to shoot it once and then head into melee. I digress. The rest of it is pretty straightforward, just whatever you want to use. Shooting or throwing beyond the range that is given to you has a -2 penalty. A weapon cannot reach farther. Did I say +2? I meant -2. If you shoot farther than its range, it's a -2 penalty to hit because it's a little harder. You gotta, maybe aim higher or something like that. The weapon cannot reach farther than twice its range. Outdoors, these increments are tripled. So if you're outside, it's much, you can shoot much further. Now, transportation, going right back up to table 21. Depending on what you're getting, generally an adventuring party will chip in for this kind of stuff. Like a hand cart, everyone can chip in some gold. However, like riding horses, war horses, those are more personal. Like you will personally be using it unless you're using them, for your wagons. Just talk with your party on how you kind of want to split up the gold for that. I know in the past in my group, we've split gold for wagons, so that way we can carry our stuff to and from a dungeon or something. So just talk to your party on that. Don't, unless you really want a personal one for some reason, don't spend all that money on it. Because you're gonna waste out a lot of money. So here's our armor. Just kind of buy the armor that your character can use. First of all, make sure you go back to those classes, and character types, and talk to your referee on what you can actually use. And then obviously make sure to pay attention to the cost so you can actually afford what you're buying. An important thing here to note is how much it weighs, because that will factor into your movement speed. And magical armor, say you find a magical suit of armor, that's only half of the normal weight. So say you find a magical chainmail shirt, it's only 25 pounds instead of 50. So just keep that in mind as well when you are calculating that. So like I said, weight is going to affect your movement. you like say you're carrying up to 75 pounds and you have your full 12 feet of movement. However, once you start going over that, that's when you're going to be encumbered, if you will. Old school people will know. So make sure to just keep that in mind. Talk to your referee if you're going to be using these charts. Personally, I don't use them all the time because it just kind of can bog down the game time sometimes. But if you're really trying to get that old school experience, definitely have a carrying modifier, so that way you're not moving as fast depending on how much you have. Again, that's going to incentivize maybe buying a vault in a city where you can keep a bunch of your stuff, or maybe just having a wagon and some horses or mules to move it around for you. That way, you know, you're not stressing out about your movement speed, basically. So then here's just a bunch of movement calculations. I'm not going to go into depth on every single one, because that's kind of up to you guys on how you want to run your movement in and out of combat. So that's basically it for today's video. I know I said I was going to keep it shorter, but then I just wanted to make sure I described everything for the newer players. Oh, we can end on this beautiful art piece. Wow, look. So nice. Looks like they stole something. Did they steal something? I think they got a gem right there. That's pretty cool. Nice. Another one here. See, look at that. So we got someone on like an oxen, and then we got this guy just struggling. He's just struggling through with the big pack on his back. If they bought a wagon, they wouldn't have to be worrying about that. Looks like they're also heading out to their next adventure, because it looks like there may be a city in the background right there. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching or listening to today's video. The next Swords and Wizardry 101 is going to be on how to play. Yay, so we get into like the mechanics of the game. It's going to be super fun. So like gaining experience, time, saving throws, combat, all that awesome stuff. And I know a lot of you are interested in how to play combat in this game. So I might just devote a whole video to combat. I mean, it's really, really such an in-depth part of the game. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. We'll see. It just might be a longer one. I'll hopefully try to keep it concise for you guys, but there's just like sort of just scrolling through, giving you an idea of what's to come. High level adventuring, that's gonna be fun to talk about too. All right, cool. So thank you all so much for watching. Leave a like on this video if you did enjoy it, and comment down below what you recommend for characters or new players to have for equipment, and maybe a fun time that you used that equipment in a fun way. I've seen a lot, like players in RPGs are really clever, and I've seen a lot of people do some really clever stuff with some things. So maybe just drop down some experiences that you've had in the chat or in the comment section down below. Subscribe for more content. Big giveaway at 1,000 subscribers, which is going to be amazing. That'll be announced in either the next video or the one after that. So stay tuned for that. Keep those rolls and spirits high, and we will see you next time.